Let's talk about the 2021 Phillies. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Phillies That's the Vidcast. You're going to have in our 2021 season review here. So all 162 games have been completed, and that is your 2021 season for the Philadelphia Phillies, as they finished with an 82-80 record after they lost yesterday to the Marlins 5-4. So we're back here today, the day after the season ended, to talk about how the season went. I guess before getting into this video, please subscribe if you have not yet. Please turn on the notification bell. Please like this video, comment on this video, share this video. And let's get into this. So I think it's very, very important, as I say every year, to have the season review the day after the season ended, right? Just to kind of get my raw emotions, my overall thoughts about how the season went. So, of course, it's hard to believe it is over, right? I mean, 7 months altogether if you include spring training, Phillies games. So they missed the postseason for the 10th consecutive year. Just absolutely crazy, right? So another season where the Phillies did not see October baseball. They do finish with a winning record the first time in 10 years since 2011. But that's not good enough, ladies and gentlemen. We all know that that's just not good enough, and I understand, some people may disagree, but I just don't really care. Dave Dombrowski has a lot of work to do this offseason. So we should jump into the season review, and I'm going to go back and just start off with the end of 2020. So we come off of a shortened season 2020. Our bullpen is, the third worst in the game's history. It's absolutely just pitiful. We just set records for ineptitude. It was absolutely just pathetic and unacceptable. So we come off a season like that where our offense is firing on all cylinders last year. It seemed like, Didi Gregorius was very, very productive last year for the Phils. Many other offensive users. Bryce Harper, he had a really, really good year last year. Not the level he had this year, though. But our offense, was much more, consistent last year. We're coming off a year like last year. We go into the offseason. Mccutchen resigns as the general manager. We bring in a man to man this front office. Not only do we hire a new GM, of course that happened after Dave Dombrowski, we also hired president of baseball operations. Dave Dombrowski mans this front office, where you bring him into December, and we bring in Sam Fold, I'm going to say right before Christmas, after we hired Dave Dombrowski. I believe Dave Dombrowski had a lot to do with hiring Stanfield as a general manager. Of course, former general manager Matt Klentak had a lot to do with getting Stanfield in the organization. So we kind of, bring in a new, face to man this front office. And we're hoping that maybe he could fix these bullpen woes. So, we go out, we have some minor acquisitions, right? With Sam Coonrad, Jose Alvarado, guys like that, right? We go out and sign Archie Brown, which we thought was going to be a huge deal for this bullpen. So they did make some moves, right? Dave Dombrowski did try a little bit, right? He just didn't try enough. So they did, make some moves to try to improve this bullpen. They go out, they re-sign JT Muto to that 5-year contract. They go out and they sign Didi Gregorius to the 2-year deal after we had a very, very productive 2020 season. So that I agree with that. When that all happened, I agreed with it. I was like, man, I love that we're getting these guys back. I was totally on board with it. I loved it. I thought it was awesome. We go into the 2021 season. I just felt the moves were just not really good enough, right? You go back and look at my 2021 series preview. I believe that was made 2 days before opening day this year. And I actually went back and listened to that video, I think, the other day, just to kind of see, because of course I did make some final predictions in that video. I predicted the Phillies to end up with this 86-76 record. They end up with an 82-80 record. So I was around where I thought they would be. Of course, 2 games over 500 compared to my projection, which was 10 games over 500. It's not that close, but it's around ballpark. You know what I'm saying? It's not too close, but it's not way far off. I didn't, predict them to have, a 95-win season. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't that far off. But it was a little off. But I'd say the season pretty much, went the way I expected, right? And this bullpen, I even said in the spring training, of course the bullpen was very, very good in spring training, but I even said at the beginning of the season, I said, I have concerns. I have my concerns. I tried to be optimistic just because I wanted to be optimistic. Of course, I'm going to be objective, but also you don't want to be too hard on this team. I thought maybe we could pull it together. Nope. This bullpen was still a disaster, not to the 2020 level, but as I said many times throughout the season, just saying, hey, this bullpen's better in 2020 and just calling it a day is not good enough. And this bullpen plagued us pretty much all year long. Had some sprints where it looked really good. Archie Brownlee was good there for a little while. Hector Neris, was on that stretch since mid-August to the end of the season where he looked pretty good. We had some good young arms coming. Connor Brogdon looked decent this year if you exclude some bad, appearances he had. And, go take a look at Bailey Falter, guy that did struggle a little bit, but he has a lot of potential. There's some young arms in this bullpen. There's no question about it. I do think they can get it together, but the bullpen definitely didn't help. So they basically pretty much just kept the same offense as they had last year. And I was okay with that. So we go into this year, we do have some high expectations, but this is a, juggernaut division. We're thinking that we have 4 teams in this division that are, that definitely have the potential to make the playoffs. The Nationals, I thought were going to be very good. The Mets, I thought they were going to be very good with, the acquisition of Lindor. Braves, of course, they made the championship series the year before. They just totally dominated the NL East, in years prior. And, of course, you got the Phillies. We got off to really hot starts, swept out the Braves again, right? It's kind of funny. Swept them out in 19 3-game set, and we swept them out also this year. So we start the year 4-0. Right? We got off to a really fast start. The division wasn't great from the start. Of course, it was not what we thought. First place a little while, towards the end of April, and, it's kind of us and the Mets, right? We're kind of, going up and down. The Braves are around 500 all year long. Of course, we're around 500 all year long as well. We go into May, Bryce Harper starts to cool off a little bit. Meanwhile, we have other guys stepping up, like Brad Miller around that time is absolutely just on fire. We're still around 500, still trying to make something happen. The Mets are comfortable in first place around that time. Bryce Harper goes on the IL, eventually comes back in June. We're still around 500. Let's keep this in mind. We're still around 500. We've just been going up and down. We either get a 5 games over 500 or 5 games under 500. We just keep going up and down, up and down, up and down. And as I'm going through this here, I just want to bring up that this offense was very inconsistent this year. An injury to Didi Gregorius, which really plagued him at the beginning. That was absolutely disastrous. He was not very good at all this year. He was absolutely terrible. He really declined fast. He was a terrible offensive player this year and defensive player, an all-around player this year for the Phillies. Terrible year. So just some injuries, right? Gene was out for a little bit too. He's kind of banged up, especially around late June too. So, it was just a very inconsistent season. Actually, it was consistently average. We go into the July, we're like fighting for a place ball all year round. That's one thing I will say. And it's just because this division was a joke. We go to the All-Star break. We're 500 at the All-Star break, exactly 500. Come back, and the Mets are starting to cool off a little bit at the All-Star break, right? We're thinking like we're gaining ground. As time kept going on, won that series against the Marlins after the All-Star break. Like we're getting good. And we go to DC, we sweep out the 4-game series. We sweep out that 4-game series. We go back on to play the Mets, we sweep out the 3-game series, and we are in first place. And all we're thinking is, hey, the Braves, they just have to stay 500, and the Mets just continue to cool off. We got this division. Well, guess what? The Braves started to heat up, and the Phillies just seemed to hit a wall after that Mets series, right? They, go and play, after the 8-game win streak, they go and play the Dodgers, lose the series, go play the Reds, lose the series. Extremely disappointing follow-up to their very hot win streak. So they pretty much just played, 500 baseball from here on out, and at that time the Braves just kept getting better and better and better and better. And they went through a little bit of a cold stretch there. I'm going to say maybe at the beginning of September. I thought maybe that we could maybe get a little push. We get to the midpoint of September, which is actually pretty recently. Now, as we're kind of getting up in the season here, I thought that, listen, man, if we could be in striking distance, right, trying to go down to Atlanta, we could win this division. We were kind of in striking distance. After a really flat loss to Pittsburgh Pirates last Sunday, we go down to Atlanta and we totally falter. Right now, this is nothing new, and we get swept out, get eliminated, and that is your season. And then we, of course, a relevant series against the Marlins, we lose 2 out of 3. But what really plagued the Phils. Not only did they have a lot of just, problems within the organization, problems on the field, right? Guys, staying on the field, but one of the biggest problems is they failed to beat the bad teams. For example, a 9-10 record against the Marlins this year. Their 3rd consecutive season when they finished with a losing record against Miami. That cannot happen. You get swept up in the Arizona Diamondbacks, you go down to Arizona. That cannot happen. You lose 2 out of 3 in Pittsburgh. That cannot happen. So all these scenarios, I'm telling you, it's just like, it's embarrassing. So they just failed to beat a lot of the bad teams. Except for the Washington Nationals, they absolutely killed the Nationals this year, which I love to see. But other than that, they pretty much just had it to them, right? They just had to hand it to them, and they couldn't do it. So some bright spots, right? Bryce Harper. An amazing season for the Phillies, an MVP season. Finishes with a 309 average. This guy was something amazing this year, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, this was a guy that just had himself a year to remember, right? The second best year of his career. So a 309 average for Harp. OBP at 429, slugging percentage at 615, OPS that led the major leagues, of course, 1,044. An amazing year for Harp. He's got to be your NL MVP. You can take a look at, the center field spot was a question mark for the Phillies all year long, right? They started out, going out of spring training, putting Adam Hazley out there. That was a total disaster. And of course, he had some personal issues off the field, which I understand, right? I mean, I completely understand that now. So, it takes a leave of absence, and they give Roman Quinn a shot. That was a disaster. And they went to pretty much the last resort to Double Herrera, and he had an all right season, right? I mean, not anything crazy. A 260 average, a 310 on base percentage, 726 OPS. I mean, middle of the road. All right defense, not really a heads up player. A guy, if he did leave, I wouldn't be crying about, right? I mean, this is not some elite center fielder. He's an average center fielder at best. I mean, he's not anything spectacular. He's not anything special. And Mccutchen, of course, did battle with a little bit of injuries. I mean, he went on a couple of hot stretches this year. Finishes with 27 home runs. Tied for second in the team with home runs, right, with Rhys Hoskins, Harper with the 35. McCutchen definitely had a very productive season. 80 RBIs for Kutch. 222 average, which wasn't very good. A 334 on base percentage, and for a little while there, he did have an above 800 OPS. For a guy his age, is very, very impressive, but unfortunately, he did finish with a 778 OPS. So that's still pretty impressive for a guy's age. So for a guy Andrew McCutchen's age, not a bad season. Of course, without Bohm, right? I mean, he just got up to the sophomore slump from the very beginning. He's a guy I could really see bouncing back, right? He just, he can't pull the baseball. I mean, he got to have a little bit of bounce. He just pokes everything the other way. Everything the other way. Everything the other way. I mean, he's got to learn. Of course, I really like the opposite field, the ability to go to all fields, but, you got to learn to pull the baseball, too. You can't hit everything the other way. Everything the other way. You got to learn to bounce. You know what I'm saying? You got to learn to bounce. His defense was just void of all worth. Absolutely disgraceful. Dina Gregorius, we already talked about him at the beginning. I mean, terrible, terrible year. This was a 639 OPS. The guy's getting paid $14 million a year to have a 639 OPS. I mean, way below average. Terrible defense. Just all around, just a bad year for Didi. Not to mention, I don't really harp on average too much. A 2.9 average, so a very just below average year for Didi Gregorius. I mean, he's a guy I could see bouncing back, but who knows? Seems like when he has that one big injury, it totally sets him back. In 2019, when he was at the Yankees, happened, right? He had an injury at the beginning of the season, wasn't the same. It seems like when he's healthy, the first couple months of the season, that's when he's going to be good. But when he has a little injury, it just something mentally just throws him off. Gene Segura, a guy who hit 290 this year. I mean, just below the 300 mark. I mean, he was pretty consistent. He had a very solid year, 348 OBP. He just missed the 800 OPS at 784. So he definitely had an all-star type season. Rhys Hoskins, a guy that had he stayed healthy. I honestly think the Phillies could have made the playoffs. I mean, even when he was coming back, when he was still injured, he was still hitting balls over the wall. Rhys Hoskins, man, just crazy. The guy was hurt and still hitting home runs. I mean, what kind of guy does that? That's just nuts. It just goes to show you how strong he is and how capable he is, right? He's not really feeling 100%, but guess what? He's still going to go out there and hit home runs. He definitely had a productive season for the Phillies. Not known for hitting for a high average, but that's okay. Finishes with a 247 average. He was really hot before he went on the IL. A 334 OBP with an 864 OPS. So he's definitely a solid first baseman. Not defensively, but offensively he is. And JT Muto, a lot of controversy around JT this year, but he does finish with a 263 average. He's not the BCIB. He's not. If people keep saying BCIB, he's not the BCIB. Okay? He's not. He was, but he's not anymore. Salvador Perez really making a big stake, for his, case for the BCIB. I tell you what, I mean, that guy's just insane. The 782 OPS for JT Muto, which is pretty impressive. Just missed the 800 mark, but by far probably his worst season with the Phils. Right? So not definitely as good as, 2019, 2020. JT Muto, a little disappointing. I expect a little bit more. The bench, I mean, the Phillies did get a lot of production from the bench. Guys like Brad Miller. He was very, very solid this year. Of course, he did see a lot of playing time. Played 140 games. Brad Miller played 140 games this year. That's insane. He appeared in 140 of the 162 games. So I did finish with a 227 average. But the thing I love, 20 home runs at 49 RBIs. I love that. I mean, he's not a full-time player. He's still able to do that. Of course, this year, I said he's not a full-time player, but he's a platoon player, right? And if I'm David Jonkowski, Brad Miller needs to be your sign as for a bench spot. Ronald Torres, a guy that came up clutch in a lot of big spots. I think maybe he's the guy you look to bring back. I really am a big fan of Ronald Torres. Of course, he is a little bit inconsistent. Not a guy you want to rely on, but I tell you, he can have some spark off the bench. I love that. Andrew Knapp, goodbye. Goodbye, Andrew Knapp. I talked about it yesterday. I'm talking about it again today. I mean, when you have a 152 average and your OPS sits at 429, how in the world could you be on a Major League roster whether you have a good chemistry or not? I don't care what Zach Eflin says. I don't care what Joe Girardi says. He needs to go. There's nothing else to say. Travis Jonkowski, still another year of club control, not a free agent until 2023. He does have some speed off the bench, which I like to see. Pretty all-right season, but he's more on for speed, right? Which I kind of like. And Freddie Gavis, of course, acquisition at the deadline. He's a guy that's going to walk in. Also, some young players for the Phillies also coming up big this year, which I love to see. Guys like Matt Vierling, guys like Luke Williams, Nick Maton. Even though Luke and Nick did cool off, Matt Vierling really showed some promise. There's no question about that. Guys like, Matt Joyce, ended up getting cut. I mean, Roman Quinn has a devastating Achilles injury. So it was all, very, very, unfortunate for some of those guys. And Zach Wheeler moving on to starting rotation. Just amazing. I mean, this guy was unbelievable. Finishes with a 14-10 record, a 2.78 ERA. The ace. Ace. Just the insanely high velo with that fastball. I love his fastball. I love it. It is dominant. It is downright unfair. A Cy Young type season, he won't win it. He doesn't deserve to win it. But he definitely he's going to get maybe some votes, but he had a Cy Young type season. Aaron Nola. Totally disappointing, right? I mean, a huge problem with that changeup. It just seems to be dead sometimes. Just have no life on it. The curveball hangs in the middle part of the plate. They're sitting there waiting for it. They knock it out of the park. I've never been a big fan of Aaron Nola's fastball. This is with a 9-9 record, a 4.63 ERA, highest in his career. Does finish with the lowest walk rate of his career, but just a total disaster for Aaron Nola this year. Not very good. Zach Eflin, a guy who was good when he was on, but we only got to see him the first half of the season pretty much, as he went on the 60 IL. Of course, he's going to be probably back after opening day next year. Of course, he's not going to be ready. Vince Velasquez is a guy that got cut. He was a total disaster. I mean, Matt Moore, a guy that got some starting rotation, he was also a disaster. So glad that he's gone. And Kyle Gibson, not great since coming over from the Phillies. I mean, there's no question about it. I knew that trade wasn't really going to be great for the Phillies when they did it. A 4-6 record, a 5.09 ERA. Not good. Another year of club control, but I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan. I mean, he's a ground ball pitcher. It seems like it was going better when he was, generating ground balls, not ranking up the strikeouts. We already talked a little bit about the bullpen. Ranger Suarez, a guy who was dominant out of the Phillies rotation this year. Just unbelievable. Some people are saying it's a fluke. Who knows? It wasn't like he only got 5 starts out of starting rotation. He got a decent amount of starts. So hopefully he can build off of that in the next year. Just an unbelievable season for Ranger Suarez. Joined some really cool company. But I tell you what, man. I mean, this was just very disappointing. And there wasn't just one big thing that went wrong. I mean, there was a lot of big things, a lot of holes in this team, but there wasn't just one big thing. Last year was the bullpen. I mean, the offense was pretty good last year. But this year, this offense showed signs of being inconsistent. It showed signs of being absolutely terrible, even when fully healthy, mostly when it wasn't fully healthy, but even when they were healthy, they were even showing signs of not really being that great. I mean, just very inconsistent. Of course, this bullpen's still an epic disaster like it was last year. One thing for the Phillies that isn't really a big problem of mine, if Kyle Gibson can bounce back, have Zach Wheeler, who's I consider the number 1. I put Ranger Suarez at number 2. I think it's either going to be Gibson over the number 3. I think you got to find that out in spring training. Then it is Zach Eflin. I mean, so that's just my opinion. So you maybe make Eflin number 4 and Gibson number 5. Who knows? But that's my rotation going into next year. I mean, I don't really think you have to do too much rotation. I think you got to focus on bullpen, maybe adding another offensive piece. No, we'll get to that in the free agent wish list video, right? That I do make at the end of October every year. So I'm not really going to talk about that too much here. But the starting rotation wasn't really a huge issue for the Phillies. It was more at the beginning of the season, but the starting rotation definitely, somewhat did its job this year. I will say that. It somewhat did its job, especially if it could have stayed more healthy than it did. So some final team stats for the year. So let's go take a look at this. The Phillies hit 240 as a team and a 318 on base percentage. They slugged 408 and finished with a 726 OPS. All right, if you're going to take a look at the league average, I mean, the league average is around, I'd say 250 or so, of course, right? I mean, around there. So pretty much just an average team, hitting, right? I mean, of course, Bryce Harper definitely had an MVP season, I said before. I'm not even going to say he arrived. People say, this season he arrived. You're just totally discrediting what he did in 2019, what he did in 2020, so I'm not going to say that. Phillies had 700 RBIs as a team this year. They finished off with 1,288 hits. They hit 262 doubles. They hit 24 triples. And they hit 198 home runs as a team. Bryce Harper was the team leader in home runs with 35. So that is your offensive, review. It combined for 3.90 ERA, which was much better than last year. Much better than last year. Still not good enough, but way better than last year. Last year was just way worse. Yeah, Phillies pitched a combined 1,418 and 2/3 innings. So that's a lot of innings right there, of course. They allowed 745 runs, only 692 of them were earned. So that just to show you some errors, some bad defense for the Phillies, right, in which the defense did let the Phillies down a little bit. The Phillies pitching staff allowed 200 home runs, and they walked 509 hitters. Phillies pitching staff struck out 1,480 hitters this year. All right. It was an improvement from last year, right? But the bullpen needs to be drastically changed. The starting rotation, I keep that pretty much the same. I like the starting rotation a lot. As I said, if Gibson can bounce back, Aaron Nola can bounce back. But go take a look at Gibson's career, not great. Yeah, I think that was just a fluke with the Rangers just in the first half of the season. Some greatest moments, right? Of course, this was a 500 type season, 82 and 80, but there were some fun moments, right? Bryce Harper it wasn't just one big moment, but just him being here and just having an MVP season. He's the MVP in my eyes, but him just being so amazing was just awesome. I just love to see it. Of course, that 8-game winning streak by far the best highlight of the season. And we all thought we were going to win the division. Zach Wheeler having a Cy Young type season, totally beating up on the Nationals. That was awesome, which I love to see. So there are a lot of positives this year. Young players coming up and just doing amazing, like Luke Williams, Nick Maton, a lot of guys. So it wasn't just one big thing, but there are a lot of things. There are a lot of different things. As much as I can talk about the negatives, there's some positives too. So those are the things I want to see improved. So that pretty much is it for the 2021 coverage. Of course, yesterday was my final game recap. Of course, that was the final game. But this pretty much officially ends my coverage of the 2021 Philadelphia Phillies. So that is your season review. I'd like to thank you all once again for all your great support this year as we now move on to covering the Major League Baseball postseason with the Yankees and Red Sox kicking it off tomorrow night. So it's going to be very fun to watch. So that's going to be on ESPN at 8:08 p.m. So guys, if you're watching this video, please subscribe if you haven't yet. Please show your bell. Please like this video, comment on this video, share this video. Check out the social media link in the description section. Phillies Hats, still Instagram, TikTok, Instagram, call or text 267-225-3392. Email me, phillieshats@gmail.com. So I don't know if you all heard, but I did announce that weekly updates are moved to Saturday, right? So they were Sunday in years prior. They're going to be moved to Saturday this year. So that's going to be the new thing. So guys, thanks for watching. I'm Luke, and I'll talk to you later. Let's go, Phils. I'll see you guys.